Hi everyone, welcome back to Asperger's from the Inside. You're here with Paul. I make weekly videos sharing the human side of autism, so make sure you hit subscribe to get the latest content. This week's video is around managing time versus managing energy. It's well known that executive function is something that a lot of us struggle with. And the best way that we can understand executive function, from my point of view, is executive function is the ability to make decisions and act on them. It involves things like planning, like working memory, things like that. And the reason it's important is because when we're trying to manage our time, it can often take a lot of executive functioning resources. And so what I find is actually more beneficial, rather than trying to manage my time, which ends up with me pouring a huge amount of resources into these executive functioning tasks of organizing and managing and keeping track and things like that. Instead of trying to manage my time, instead I focus on trying to manage my energy instead. Ultimately, why do we try and manage time? Probably a lot of the time the reason is because I need to get stuff done. There are some mandatory things that I need to do in my life, like brush my teeth, go to work, eat dinner, things like that. And these things take time, and it's very important that I actually make room in my life for all of these things, because as soon as they start dropping, as soon as I start not eating every day, or not having a shower every day, or not going to work every day, right? These are just random examples that I'm picking out to illustrate the point that there are some things, that some maintenance tasks that need to keep ticking along in the background so that we can continue to function. And when we run out of time, or more accurately, when we run out of energy and or time, and these things don't get done, then that's a problem. So it's easy to imagine that the way I'm going to make sure that I get all of my tasks done, that I physically do everything that I need to do, is to manage my time. And what I've found is, when I try to manage my time, I could come up with the best plan in the world of a schedule: get up, do this, 1 hour here, 20 minutes here, etc. And it just doesn't work for me, because what I find is that the amount of mental energy that it requires for me to keep myself on track is huge. The amount of mental energy that it requires for me to motivate myself to switch from one task to the next, and to get into the zone of the next task, and to motivate myself to actually do the next thing, is huge oftentimes. I'll give you an example. I didn't like going to gyms for a long time. I'm like, why would I exercise inside when I could exercise outside? Eventually, I changed my mind on this, because I realized, while it was completely free and cheap and easy and better for me to exercise outside, I wasn't doing it. Why wasn't I doing it? Because I didn't have the motivation to decide executive function, making a decision and acting on it. I didn't have the energy and executive function to decide, I'm going to put on my exercise clothes, leave the house by myself, choose what to do, choose where to go, choose what exercises to do, choose how long that I'm going to do them for. And I'm deliberately using this word choice. There is a choice and a decision that needs to be made at every single one of these points that was really draining my energy. The closest that I came to coming up with something that worked for me to self-motivate myself to exercise, for example, was if I had a routine or a decision that I'd made in advance. I'm going every Tuesday morning at this time, I'm going to get up and I'm going to do all of the things in my routine in an order that I already know. Great. That's one aspect gone. Now I don't have to choose what to do because I know exactly what to do. Actually, what I did is I had to choose in advance, so I still had to use that energy choosing, but it reduced the barrier at the time. But then I need to keep track. I need to say, where am I up to? How many sit-ups have I done? What's next? After I get up, where do I go to next? And all of these things made it way too hard to actually do the task, even though it wasn't going to take much time. How hard is it to get up and do 20 minutes of exercise a day? It would only take 20 minutes, but in terms of budgeting my time, but in terms of budgeting my energy, it was way too much for me, so I never actually ended up doing it. Compare this to going to a class at the gym. All of a sudden, all I need to do is decide when I'm going to go and actually do it. So my alarm wakes me up in the morning, get up, shoes on, out the door, done. Then when the instructor says, okay, do this 10 times, I can just say, yeah, I can't count to 10. I'm sorry. You'll have to put me with a partner, or you'll have to time me, or you'll have to do something, because unfortunately, I don't have the brain power. I don't have the energy to count to 10. I have the energy to actually do the physical exercise, but I can't count to 10. So this is just an example of how there's a huge difference between time and energy. And actually, a lot of the time, I realized what I needed to do was to reduce the amount of decisions I have to make, and especially reduce the amount of energy that I had to use self-motivating myself. If I'm in the, and to go back to the gym class, if I'm sitting there and then they tell me get up and do 10 star jumps, then I have external motivation because someone else is telling me to do it and everyone else in the class is doing it, and I've already bought into doing it anyway. So what am I going to do? Sit here and not do it? There's all of a sudden, actually doing it is by far the easiest thing to do rather than sitting there and doing nothing. Whereas if I'm sitting at home in my office and I think, oh, should I stand up and do 10 star jumps? It's only going to take 30 seconds or something. That is much, much more difficult. Okay, so if we're managing our energy instead, what does that actually look like? When I first started trying to manage my energy, I had the idea that I had a finite amount of energy and I need to allocate it efficiently and effectively. So I can't spend too much energy on this. I need to spend my energy here and I can't afford to do this, etc. You may have heard of something called spoon theory, which is quite popular, which is basically the idea that we have a limited number of spoons of energy, like spoonfuls of energy, and sometimes we just don't have enough to do what we need to do. And sometimes very basic things like getting out of bed and having a shower, or talking on the phone, or writing an email, or cooking yourself dinner, or looking up something online might take a huge amount of spoons that we don't have. So that is somewhat helpful, but it actually instilled in me the belief that I have a finite amount of energy, which is not quite true. Energy is a renewable resource. So while I currently, in the present moment, have a finite amount of energy, I do not have a finite amount of energy in the long term, because how much energy I have tomorrow depends on two things. It depends on how much I get and how much I use. It's a flow. And I've got this very clear mental image of the flow diagrams we used to use in my engineering course, right? There's input, output, storage, and all of it has to balance. So if I want to make sure that my reserves of energy don't go too low, there are actually two main strategies that I can use. The first main strategy, spoon theory, is being very aware of where I'm using my energy and making sure I don't spend my energy too much on things that aren't valuable. That's one aspect. However, very often an even more powerful aspect is, what if I focus on getting more energy? That way, I don't need to worry about rationing my very small amount of energy, because I'm actually getting a reasonable amount. So this leads to questions like, what energizes me? Which is a strange question. It almost sounds like, what do you mean, what energizes you? Surely everything that I do costs me energy. That's how I felt. That's how I still sometimes feel. But what I've realized is some things wake me up, for example. Some things put me to sleep. Some things wake me up. Some things are draining. Some things I get to the end of the task or the end of the activity, or I'm in the middle of an activity, and there is something in me that is giving me, in the moment, the energy to keep going. So for me, for example, I really appreciate physical exercise, right? Going to the gym sometimes helps. I've discovered bouldering recently, which is really fun. I used to do Taekwondo at uni. That was great. 2 hours of jumping and kicking is great. And then we'd have some social time afterwards, which ironically is actually also really energizing for me in the right situation. A lot of typical, stereotypical, neurotypical social situations are very draining, but the right kind of social interaction is actually really good. It gives me stimulus from the outside, so I don't need to come up with it. There's something happening around me. It keeps me awake. There's something interesting to talk about. And what it means is I don't have to force myself to go on and do the next thing. So I realized for myself that, ironically, resting by myself is not energizing. Why is it not energizing? Because if I'm sitting at home on the couch by myself with a day off and nothing to do, I have to decide, what am I going to do next? And if I don't have any executive function resources left because I've used them all already, then how do I make that decision? How do I find something that is energizing for me? And then when I decide to do something, maybe I'll do some cleaning, get up and cook dinner or something, or get up, let's say go for a walk. That's a very easy thing to do. Just put the shoes on and go out of the house. That's great for like an hour. But then at the end of the walk, I come back and now I have to make another decision. What am I going to do now? There's so much time. And then the anxiety of, I've got all of this time and nothing to do with it, actually is not very restful and relaxing. So ironically, even making a lot of time is not necessarily recharging my energy. Instead, I actually have to decide in advance, hopefully, or get others' help to decide, what am I going to do that is going to increase my energy? And very often, it's involving other people, for me at least. Something that definitely helped me to get more energy is to write myself a list of what are the things that I can do if I'm at a complete brain fog, cannot make a single decision. I don't know what I'm going to do next. So I've got a plan. When I don't know what I'm going to do next, I'll pull out my list of things that I could do and I'll do one of them. It might be call a friend. It might be go for a walk. Or it might be go rock climbing if we're not in lockdown, right? So having those things prepared in advance means that I don't need to make a decision at the time. The other thing that it made me realize is that there are some things that are just always really draining. If you've been watching this channel for a while, you've probably heard me say that writing emails is probably the most draining thing in my entire life at the moment, because it's a necessary part of working from home. It's a necessary part of communicating with the world. And sure, I can do it. I have the ability to do it, but it just takes a lot of energy. So instead of budgeting time for that, I need to budget my energy. I need to know that if I'm going to do this, I'm not going to have much energy later on. And even better, I can say, what can I do to make this necessary task take less energy? there are some things I can do to make writing emails take less energy. I can do it at the end of the day when I have less energy. Ironically, that when I have less energy, I give less energy, and that means that I can do it better. I can get other people to help with it. I can get my computer to read the email to me so that I don't have to use my eyes to try and focus on a screen, which again is really tiring. So by acknowledging what gives me energy and what type of tasks take energy from me, I can start designing my life, especially those everyday maintenance tasks that I absolutely need to do. I need to make sure that those things that I do every day are engineered in a way that they do not cost me unnecessary energy. In fact, what I want to do is try to make as many natural opportunities to do the tasks and do the things that give me energy as much as I possibly can. You may have seen my burnout video the other week. When I was at home with nothing to do during burnout, one of the things that I ended up doing was I took out my Excel spreadsheet and I did stuff on that I was wanting to do for a long time, not because it needed to be done. And actually it takes a lot of energy to focus and work out all the formulas and do everything. But it actually gave me internal energy to do that because I like doing that. It's fun. I like spreadsheets. Some people would understand what I mean when I say I like spreadsheets. They give me a sense of security and control, and I can do so much, and power. I can do so much with them. I can manipulate all the data. And that gave me energy. And the very fact of just following my energy, I feel like doing it, so I do it, instead of I feel like doing it, but I don't have time, so I'm going to stick on this track. Or I feel like doing this, but that's not in the schedule, so I'm not going to do it. I found that all of those things of constantly regulating my own emotions is really draining. So the best energizing activities for me are the ones where I don't have to regulate my emotions because they are automatically regulated in a given setting. Anyway, might leave it there. This has been a bit of a discussion around the difference between managing time and managing energy, and I hope I've shared some useful strategies. So thanks for watching, and I guess I'll see you again next week. Bye.